Greetings, everyone! And yes, this segment has finally returned. Lesser known but awesome heroes is back. And I kept thinking about who is the first character that I could bring back. And then after that, who would be the next character? So today, very first character back on this segment is a character that I was actually introduced to in the 2000 Justice League cartoon. And some of you may recognize this character, some of you may not, but I'm pretty sure the majority of you, even if you're not comic book fans, will recognize this character. Yes, that's right. Today I'll be talking about none other than J'onn J'onzz, also known as the Martian Manhunter. And boy, do I got a lot to cover, so let's not waste time. Okay, J'onn was created by Joseph Sam Mexon. I'll just say Sam Mexon. And Joe Certa. Joe Certa. His first appearance was in Detective Comics Volume 1, issue number 225. Issue 225 in November of 1955. J'onn is part of the now near extinct Green Martian race, and originally hailed from Mars. Naturally, Martian, Mars. It's the classic 50s cliche. He's been a member of Stormwatch, the Outsiders, and the Justice League, and has taken on many aliases. But first, let me cover his abilities, because J'onn has some pretty crazy abilities, because what we've seen in Justice League is pretty much like a dumbed-down, watered version of what J'onn can do. Okay, his abilities are super strength, speed, senses, mentality, and endurance. Shapeshifting, invincibility, vortex breath, hypnosis, telekinesis, invisibility, intangibility, longevity, healing factor, flight, telepathy, Martian vision, which is his version of heat vision, and allegedly at one point he had heat generation. But that was because he was like this weird fire creature that got into a kaiju battle with fucking Plastic Man. Yeah, I don't want to go into that, but I have a feeling that I'm going to have to. And I'm going to tell you guys a funny little story about J'onn in publication here, when we get to the Bronze Age and stuff. But let's start with the Silver Age. Yes, the 1950s to 1960s. Martian Manhunter debuted in a backup story, The Strange Experiment of Dr. Erdell, in Detective Comics 225 in November of 1955. Written by the guys who I just said that created him. The character is a green-skinned extraterrestrial humanoid from the planet Mars who was pulled to Earth by an experimental teleportation beam, originally presented as an attempted communication device by Dr. Saul Erdell. The Martian tells Erdell where he is from and is told that to send him back will require the computer's brain's thinking plot to be changed. The shock of the encounter kills Erdell and leaves J'onn with no method of returning home. The character decides to fight crime while waiting for Martian technology to advance to a stage that will enable his rescue. To that end, he adopts the identity of J'onn J'onzz, a detective in the fictional Midtown USA. He is thought to have been inspired by a story in Batman issue number 78, where a Martian lawman comes to Earth and teams with Batman and Robin to capture the Stranger, a Martian criminal called Quark, who has stolen a spaceship and come to Earth. During this period, the character and his backstory differ to some minor and some significant ways from modern treatments. Firstly, as with his counterpart, the Silver Age Superman, his power range is poorly defined, and his powers expand over time as the plot demands. The addition of precognitive abilities, Detective Comics 226, are quickly followed by telepathy and flight, atomic vision, super hearing, and many other powers. In addition, his customary weakness to fire is only manifested when he is in his native Martian form. A more significant difference is that at this time there is no suggestion that Mars is a dead planet or that the character is the last of his kind. Many tales of the time either feature Martian technology or the appearance of other Martian characters. Detective Comics 236 in October of 1956, for example, features the character making contact with the planet Mars and his parents. Jean eventually reveals his existence to the world, after which he operates openly as a superhero and becomes a charter member of the Justice League. During the character's initial few years as a member of the Justice League, he was often used as a substitute for Superman in stories, just like Green Arrow was for Batman. As DC Comics was worried that using their flagship characters too often in Justice League stories, because of fears of overexposure, there we go, the Martian and the Archer integrated the team-up format in Brave and the Bold. Jean would appear there one other time working with fellow JLAer, The Flash. In some stories, he is shown traveling through space at near light speed and to other planets. The detective John Jones is obscenely killed in action by the idle head of Dea Blue, I can't pronounce that, an artifact which generates supernatural monsters. Jean abandons the civilian identity as he decides fighting this new menace will take a great deal of his time. At this point, his feature moves to House of Mystery, where Jean spent the next few years in battle against the idle head. Excuse me. Shortly after its defeat, he takes the persona of Marco Xander in order to infiltrate the international criminal cartel known as Vulture, which he defeats in the final installment of his original series. As Superman and Batman were allowed by DC to become fully active members of the Justice League, Jean's appearances began to dwindle. He last participated in a mission in his original tenure in issue number 61 in March of 1968. Sorry, I had to pause there for a drink. My throat was getting scratchy. Anyway, shortly before his solo series was discontinued in House of Mystery, issue number 173 in May to June of 1968. In issue 71, his people finally came to Earth for him and left with him to found and become the leader of New Mars. However, over the next 15 years, Jean appeared sporadically in various DC titles. Now for the Bronze Age, the 70s to mid-80s. Now, before I begin this was actually pretty funny. I'll tell you a story here. During the Silver Age, apparently Jean grew an addiction to Oreos. Oh, excuse me. Now you may be thinking to yourself, okay, Steve, why Oreos? Well, this was back during a time when they were raising drug awareness, and apparently, as we find out, Jean is always eating Oreo cookies while he was on monitor duty. Just always. And whenever somebody tried to touch his cookies, he would get very grumpy and hostile. Well, it's later revealed, Booster Gold and Wally West decide, hey, we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to buy up all the cookies in town and just hide them all in one big massive warehouse. Well, we later find out that actually chocolate has a narcotic effect on Martian physiology. So Jean, like any other drug addict, went through withdrawals and started to become irrational. He had diminished intelligence, and he turned into a hulking alien monster form and started tearing apart some of the local, stores. And it's then at this point that Booster and Wally look at each other like, oh crap, and then they take him to a warehouse, which he cleans out almost the entire warehouse. And it then ends with arguably to me one of the funniest things with Batman, because he blacks out, and when he wakes up, the entire league is around him. And it's then that Batman approaches Jean, and he goes, Jean, you have an issue. You got a problem. You're addicted to Oreos. Funniest bat line to me ever. But Jean then apparently secretes all the remaining chocolate and stuff, takes a dump, and then his dump gains sentience, starts growing eyeballs and tentacles and stuff, and Superman has to incinerate it with his heat vision. Some of you may be looking and going, okay, that's a bad joke. I swear to you, look this up. I could not make this stuff up, even if I have the most overactive imagination. But anyway, trying to get back to the story at hand here. Okay, as I was saying here, yeah, the 70s to mid-80s. In 1972, Superman was teleported to New Mars. Jean briefly returned to Earth by spaceship in 1975. Jean made another trip to Earth shortly thereafter, leading to Superman and Batman fighting alongside him on New Mars. 3 years later, it was discovered playing cosmic-level chess with Destro using JLAers as pieces. The Martian again encountered Superman in outer space. He permanently resurfaced in the DC Universe in 1984. Shortly thereafter, the League had several members resign, among many other changes, leaving an opening for the Manhunter to take. In staying on Earth, he decided to revive his John Jones identity, this time as a private detective, but had to explain his 20-year disappearance. This contradicts Jean's final story in the back of Detective Comics, where everybody was led to believe that Jones was dead. Post-crisis, which is mid-80s to mid-90s. In early 1987, DC revamped its struggling Justice League of America series by relaunching the title Justice League International. This new series added quirky humor to the team's stories. Jean is present from the first issue, and within the stories is used as a straight man for other characters for comedical situations. The series also added a number of elements to his backstory that have remained to the present, such as Jean's obsession with Oreo cookies, partly due to Captain Marvel's influence. Yeah. 1988 four-issue miniseries Martian Manhunter further redefined the character and changed a number of important aspects of both his character and his origin story. It's revealed that Dr. Erdell did not die and that the character's humanoid appearance was due to the psychological trauma and attempts to block out the death of his race. His familiar appearance, a compromise between his true form and his human form, based on Erdell's mental concept of what a Martian should look like. Later series retcon that his real form is private and that even on Mars his public appearance was the familiar version. The native name for Mars is said to be Ma Alarica. I can't even pronounce that, but it's basically native Martian. But it's native Martian, which was actually used by the inhabitants of Mars in C.S. Lewis's novel Straight Out of the Silent Planet. Novel Out of the Silent Planet. Though neither Jean nor the planet itself resemble Lewis's conception. The series also adds to canon the idea that Jean was not only displaced in space, but in time, and the Martian race, including Jean's wife and daughter, has been dead for thousands of years. The 90s saw the character continue to serve in many different versions of the JLA. And many different versions of the JLA. There we go. In addition to serving in the League under his own identity, he also joins under duress disguised as Bloodwand. Soon after, it's revealed that Jean had accidentally bonded with Bloodwand prior to his joining the League. Jean assumed the physical form and manner of Bloodwand, while Bloodwand himself was teleported to inside of his blood gem. They were separated and both continued their associations with the League. The 92 miniseries American Secrets is set in the character's past, exploring the previously unrevealed adventure against the backdrop of a changing America during the 1950s. And the series finds the Manhunter drawn into a murder mystery that rapidly escalates into paranoia and alien invasion. Post-Zero Hour, which is mid-90s and mid-2000s. In 1997, Jean became a founding member of Grant Morrison and Howard Porter's spectacularly popular new JLA. where the team fought against a group of white Martians called the Hyper Clan. Martian Manhunter began as an ongoing series in '98, and the series lasted 36 issues before being canceled due to low sales. It's established that Martian Manhunter is the most recognized hero in the Southern Hemisphere and that he maintains a number of different secret identities, many of them outside of the United States. However, following two incidents later in the series in which Jean separates from Martian Manhunter, he decides to focus on his original human identity and retire the others. The series established that Jean has a disturbed brother, whose name I can't really pronounce, who uses his shape-shifting abilities to pose as Jean, capturing and torturing Son of Saturn, Gem, and terraforming part of Earth to resemble Mars. This is all part of a grand plan designed to convince the rest of the JLA that Jean has turned into a sociopath. However, Jean is able to clear his name and defeat his brother despite mostly having his body destroyed in an exploding spaceship. It's later revealed that he is able to regenerate his entire body from his severed hand. The series also further established the history between both the Manhunter and Sadatorian race. And the first issue revealed that there was a real human John Jones, a police detective who was murdered by corrupt colleagues, and that John subsequently assumed the identity to complete an important court case. And in issues of JLA written by Joe Kelly, Jean attempts to conquer his fear of fire and makes a deal with the flame-wielding villainess called Scorch. And oh yeah, who wants Jean to telepathically help in dealing with her own mental issues. The story would serve to redefine his traditional aversion to fire. He is now invulnerable to flames unless they are flames of passion or of some other psychic significance. This change is forgotten about in later series and adventures. The Crisis era, mid-2000s to early 2010s. During the lead-up to the Infinite Crisis miniseries, the character is feared to have been killed in an attack on the Justice League's headquarters. He is later revealed to be alive and a captive of Alexander Luthor Jr. After Infinite Crisis, most of DC's series jumped ahead one year, having the weekly series 52 fill in the missing time. In 52 issue number 24, it is revealed that the character has been working behind the scenes in an unsuccessful attempt to destroy Checkmate for its role in the death of Ted Kord, the second Blue Beetle. Several weeks before World War III, the Martian Manhunter disguises himself as a young girl and tries to defeat Black Adam telepathically in Bialya. He is defeated after being exposed to Adam's darkest memories and flees Earth. In the miniseries, World War III is told from his perspective. Using these events as a catalyst, DC Comics redesigned the appearance, of the character, changing his costume and giving him an appearance that is much more closely resembled to his Martian form. These changes were further explored during a Martian Manhunter limited series that spun out of the DCU Brave New World one-shot. The series portrayed the Manhunter being more mistrustful of humanity and their actions towards each other. The miniseries focused on Jean's search for other survivors of Mars. Following the miniseries, Jean was intended to be in The Outsiders. He appeared in the third issue of The Outsiders 5 of a Kind series with Thunder, and joined with the team afterwards. Due to a change in writers, he was quickly written out in the last 2 issues. He was next seen working undercover during the events of the limited series Salvation Run. At the end of the series, Jean was left captured and alone on an alien planet. In Final Crisis number 1, written by Grant Morrison, the character is killed, and the death is being further developed in the one-shot Final Crisis Requiem. The character next appears in the Blackest Night storyline as a Black Lantern. At the end of the miniseries, the character is resurrected. Following this, the character is featured in the weekly Brightest Day series. During the series, Jean encounters another surviving Green Martian. who is a scarred and warped psychopath who wants Jean to be her mate. In Brightest Day, he is a very prominent character, finding a water source on Mars and meeting and talking with the daughter of Dr. Erdell, Melissa. Jean is depicted tucking her into bed in a retirement home in the form of her father. He later appears at Erdell's old lab, however, plant life starts to die every time he gets near. Later still, Jean goes to see Megan, aka Miss Martian, of Young Justice, and the Teen Titans and such in Australia during her meditation search, but finds her beaten and tied up. While tending to her, he is contacted by the White Lantern, I guess you can say, force known simply as the Entity, who instructs Jean to burn down the newly formed forest. When Jean asks Megan who did this to her, she replies that she was attacked by a female Green Martian. After this, Jean senses something in Star City and arrives in Star City's newly formed forest and attempts to complete his task. However, the Entity stops him and reveals to him that the newly formed forest that he wants Jean to burn down is on Mars. After Jean lashes out, he returns home. During this same time period, he is found by Green Arrow, who attacks Jean, mistaking him for a monster. After being knocked out and dragged out of the forest, Jean explains that the forest somehow tampered with his Martian shapeshifting abilities and temporarily drove him insane. When Jean arrives home, he sees his planet has a newly formed forest on Mars. When Jean enters his home, he is confronted by a female Green Martian, the same Green Martian who attacked Megan. She explains her origins and wants to be Jean's mate. Jean refuses and learns that she was a psychopath when she angrily lashes out to attacks and enters his mind. Jean tries to resist influence from her mind, but her control over his mind tempts him with visions of a fantasy world where all Martians and Jean's family are resurrected by the Entity. While reunited with his lost family, Jean discovers that they are false and realizes that they are a ruse, and the death corpse is carved of Martian symbols of love and hate from her influence. Jean arrives vengeful and wrings her neck in disgust. Jean defeats her by forcing her into the sun, saved from the same fate by the White Lantern Entity, who informs him that his mission has been established and returns his life to him. The Entity then tells Jean to choose between Mars and Earth. Jean chooses Earth and returns to his adopted homeworld, only to be absorbed into Earth by the Entity as part of the plan. When the Dark Avatar makes his presence known, Jean is revealed to be one of the elementals. Jean is transformed by the Entity to become the element of Earth in order to protect Star City's forest from the Dark Avatar, which appears to be the Black Lantern version of Swamp Thing. The elementals are then fused with the body of Alec Holland in order for Holland to be transformed by the Entity into the new Swamp Thing and battle the Dark Avatar. After the Dark Avatar is defeated, Swamp Thing returns Jean to normal. Afterward, he helps Melissa, the daughter of Dr. Erdell, remove the piece from her head after she loses her mind. Following the events of Flashpoint, Martian Manhunter became a member of the covert organization known as Stormwatch. And despite now being allied with the militant Stormwatch group, where he says he goes if I need to be a warrior instead of being a hero, it is mentioned that Jean is from the Justice League. And I could go into this whole entire thing, but I'm not going to. Because, to be honest with you guys, it's pretty damn stupid. So, honestly, I will admit, I never knew about Martian Manhunter. And it's kind of cool to be able to find out, Jean's origins. Because Jean is actually a pretty unique and pretty cool character. and one that I was glad to actually be introduced to in the 2000 Justice League series. And I'll give the Justice League of America book that's coming out next year a try, but I really don't hold very high expectations. And more than likely, they probably, like most of the modern comics of today, Jean may be turned into a cold, calculating psychopath, and I really hope that they don't do that. Because the greatest things about Jean as a character is him exploring humanity. Finding a reason to actually care about humanity. That's something that I always enjoyed in the 2000 Justice League, especially the Christmas episode where he goes around, throughout Christmas and trying to figure out, the meaning of it. So, that's pretty much it, guys. That is the origin of J'onn J'onzz, also known as the Martian Manhunter. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and of course, Lesser Known But Awesome Heroes is back, and J'onn is one of 3 characters that I'm going to start off as with a powerhouse, opening. I will let you guys know the second character is in fact, Wade Wilson Deadpool. Yes, so you guys have been requesting Deadpool quite a lot. I know, you guys have at least been wanting me to go into his origins. As a matter of fact, I actually did Wade's video first before I did this video, so this is like video number 2. But this is actually the first one that I'm gonna post, so yeah, I kinda did in reverse order a little bit there, but yeah, look forward to Wade's video. I've already got it done, but I won't post it today. This is this week's video. I may do it next week. And the third video, well, I'll just tell you that the third video is actually a Top Cow character, and one that you guys saw in the special announcement video. So, let you guys kind of sit on that. But nevertheless, J'onn J'onzz. A character that's pretty recognized, but is criminally underrated by many. And so I thought that I would do this video to give the character justice, but nevertheless, guys, while he is pretty well known, but criminally underrated, J'onn J'onzz, the Manhunter from Mars, is more than awesome. And arguably, one would say that he's the most powerful member of the League and kind of dwarfs Superman.